There's a phrase that keeps showing up in federal court filings, and once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Very close. That's what a Pentagon official emailed Anthropic CEO, calling their positions very close on the two most contested issues in the entire dispute: surveillance, autonomous weapons. The email was sent the day after the government officially declared Anthropic a national security risk. Very close, and then banned. That contradiction, sworn to under penalty of perjury, is the kind of thing that breaks a case open. It's also the kind of thing that reveals what's actually being negotiated, not safety, not technology, but the rules for how intelligence systems participate in war. And yesterday didn't just give us the Pentagon story. It gave us a White House framework trying to centralize all AI governance, an oral pill that might change cardiovascular medicine forever, a robot that builds solar farms around the clock, and a cancer prediction system that learned to read metastasis across tumor types it was never trained on. Let's go. Two people put their names on declarations filed in federal court yesterday, and what they said under oath dismantles the government's central argument. Thiago Ramasamy, Anthropic's head of public sector, formerly 6 years at AWS building government deployments, stated that Anthropic has no kill switch, no backdoor, and no ability to modify Claude once it's deployed inside an air-gapped military system. He was specific. Company personnel cannot, for example, log into a DOW system to modify or disable the models during an operation. Once the system is inside a classified environment, any update requires the Pentagon's explicit approval and contractor to install it. Anthropic doesn't have the keys. He said so under oath. The second declaration is from Sarah Heck, a former national security official who was physically present in the room on February 24th when CEO Dario Amodei met with Defense Secretary Hegseth. She states that the government's concern about Anthropic potentially disabling technology mid-operation, the argument at the heart of the supply chain risk designation, was never raised during negotiations and appeared for the first time in the government's court filings. And then there's the email. Under Secretary Emil Michael, the Pentagon's own negotiator, wrote to Amodei on March 4th, one day after the design was formalized, saying that the two sides were very close on exactly the issues the government now cites as evidence of national security risk. Think about that timeline. March 3rd, designation finalized. March 4th, the Pentagon's negotiator tells Anthropic they're nearly aligned on the sticking points. If you were a judge, and Judge Rita Lynn will hear this on Tuesday, you'd want to understand how these two facts can coexist. Either the designation was a genuine security assessment made on March 3rd and the negotiator did not know about it, or the negotiator knew the issues were nearly resolved and the designation served a different purpose. The Century Report has tracked this confrontation since late February, and the core dispute was never about whether Claude works. It was about a single phrase: analysis of bulk acquired data. What compliance with that phrase would require Anthropic to enable. Meanwhile, this same week, Palantir held its developer conference. CEO Alex Karp declared the company's sole priority is supporting warfighters. Employees who expect debate about military AI? Wrong company, he said. So here are the two polls. One company says we'll build intelligence systems for national defense, but some uses cross a line we won't cross. The other says no lines. Tuesday's ruling will determine which approach the legal system reinforces, and that shapes every AI company's incentive structure going forward. Now, you might think this is just a government procurement fight, but it's not. If embedded safety commitments can be designated as supply chain risks, the rational move for every frontier AI company is to strip those commitments out of their architectures. The 30-plus OpenAI and Google employees, including Google DeepMind's chief scientist, who filed an amicus brief opposing the designation, understand this. Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, 22 former military officials understand this. What's being decided Tuesday isn't whether Anthropic gets a contract. It's whether an AI system is allowed to carry values into deployment without the company being punished for it. All right, let's shift to another story here. Different building, but same week, and a different kind of power grab. The White House released a national AI legislative framework yesterday that does something no previous administration has attempted this explicitly. The 7-point plan calls on Congress to preempt state AI laws, avoid creating new regulatory bodies, and let existing agencies handle AI within their current domains. The core argument is that AI development is, quote, an inherently interstate phenomenon with key foreign policy and national security implications. So therefore, states shouldn't be the ones writing the rules, right? That's what they're saying. 4 states have already passed comprehensive AI legislation. You got Colorado, California, Utah, and Texas. Dozens more have bills moving. The Century Report has tracked a 2026 legislative wave where states have been the primary governance actors. From Virginia's unanimous balcony solar vote, to Illinois' data center self-supply mandate, to the 27-state balcony solar campaign, states filled the vacuum that federal inaction created. And now, the federal government wants that vacuum back. The child safety section is the most developed part of this framework and the most politically savvy, really. Age assurance requirements, limits on training AI on kids' data, protections against AI-generated child sexual abuse material. It's the one area where the framework doesn't seek to preempt states because child safety has bipartisan support that's obviously politically untouchable. But here's the part that really caught me. The framework declares that training AI on copyrighted material does not violate copyright law, and then it adds, courts should resolve this issue. On the same day, authors asked a federal court to finalize a $1.5 billion settlement with Anthropic, the largest copyright action in history, where Anthropic agreed to pay over $3,000 per work it was accused of downloading from pirate websites. The executive branch is calling the legal question settled, while the judiciary is processing evidence that at least one major AI company found that question worth $1.5 billion to make go away. The Electronic Privacy Information Center called the framework, quote, light on protection and heavy on promotion of dangerous AI systems. Industry groups, of course, welcomed it. The framework's AI czar is a venture capitalist. The stated priority is global AI dominance. And those terms, wherever you stand on them, will be the baseline against which every federal AI bill gets measured for years. And the deeper question isn't whether this framework passes or even which side is quote-unquote the right side. It's what governance becomes when the technology it's trying to govern changes faster than any legislative body can convene. All right, let's shift to another story here. I want to talk about something that could genuinely change your life or the life of someone that you love. There's a class of drugs called the PCSK inhibitors. They lower LDL cholesterol, the bad kind, dramatically. And they've been available for years, and they work. And almost nobody uses them. And the reason is absurdly simple. They're injections. You have to go to a clinic or give yourself a shot every 2 to 4 weeks for a drug you'll take for the rest of your life. And it turns out that's enough friction to keep most patients away. Fewer than half of people with established heart disease currently reach their cholesterol targets, even on statins. Yesterday, a phase 3 trial published in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that an oral pill, enlicitide, reduced LDL cholesterol by 60% in 2,909 patients. The Coral Reef trial, led by Anne-Marie Navarre at UT Southwestern, the same institution where the Nobel Prize-winning discovery of LDL receptors happened decades ago. 60% in a pill that matches what the injections do. Let me make this tangible. Heart disease is the leading cause of death on Earth. Statins were the biggest pharmaceutical invention in cardiovascular history, and they leave tens of millions of people still above their cholesterol targets. The injectable PCSK9 inhibitors proved the molecular approach works, but couldn't solve the delivery problem of the shot. Now a pill solves it. Not because the chemistry is different, but because you'll actually take this. And that's a pattern worth naming. The bottleneck in medicine is increasingly not, can we do this, but can we deliver it in a form the healthcare system can actually distribute at scale? An injection that sits unused in a pharmacy is less effective, obviously, than a pill that sits in your medicine cabinet ready to take. A follow-up trial is already underway to determine whether the cholesterol reductions translate into fewer heart attacks and strokes. But the delivery threshold, pill versus needle, has been crossed. All right, let's shift again over to another medical story. Researchers at the University of Geneva built an AI system called Mangrove OS that predicts whether a cancer will spread with roughly 80% accuracy by reading gene expression patterns in colon tumor cells. And here's what makes this really unusual. They didn't just find a biomarker. They analyzed hundreds of gene signatures across individual cell clones from colon tumors, sequenced the RNA, and generated a risk score through an encrypted platform that works directly with hospital tumor samples. That is not a research prototype. That is a new system designed to sit inside a hospital's existing workflow. And the finding that elevates this is the cross-tumor generalization. The gene signatures derived from colon cancer also predicted metastatic risk in stomach cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer. The system learned something about how cancer spreads that transfer across tissue types. This echoes what the Century Report documented on March 12th, when Scripps Research's protein-folding Alzheimer's diagnostic validated across independent patient cohorts. AI systems trained in one biological context discovering signals that generalize to context they've never seen. For the person sitting in an oncologist's office wondering whether their tumor will stay put or travel, which is one of the most consequential clinical questions that exists, an 80% accurate prediction system changes the conversation. It could mean the difference between aggressive treatment or just watchful monitoring, and between overtreatment and undertreatment, and the fact that it generalizes across tumor types suggests it's reading something fundamental about the biology of metastasis, not just a quirk of colon tissue. This ties directly to a human voice segment here on Century Report from the other day, where CEO Shiv Rao talked about how his A-Bridge system is being deployed across 150 different institutions. And Rao is really candid about something that most physicians won't say publicly. For many routine questions, he prefers that his own family would start with a capable AI system rather than a rushed general practitioner. Not because the AI is better, but because the GP has 11 minutes, and 9 of them are eaten by documentation. Rao frames AI not as replacing this human encounter, but as making it even possible in the first place. In a system where doctors need, he says, 30 hours a day, and rural hospitals are closing, the path to accessible care runs through removing the administrative burden that currently consumes most of a clinician's working life. And he's trying to address that. Now that connects every medical thread from today. An oral pill removes the delivery barrier to cholesterol treatment. An AI prediction system removes the guesswork from a metastasis risk. An ambient documentation AI removes the paperwork barrier that keeps doctors from being doctors. Each one works by subtracting friction, making what was always possible actually happen at the scale that people really need. All right, let's shift to another big advancement story today. Terabase Energy started commercial shipments yesterday of something that sounds like science fiction, even just a few years ago, and is, as of this week, a product you can buy. TerraFab V2 is a robot system that builds solar farms continuously, day and night. Traditional solar construction works like this. Install steel torque tubes, then workers manually lift and attach panels one by one in the desert heat, at height. Millions of components across thousands of acres. TerraFab inverts that process. Panels are pre-assembled onto torque tubes with integrated quality checks. Specialized rovers move completed units into position. A single TerraFab line installs more than 20 megawatts per week, exceeding the 1 gigawatt per factory year. The world added 814 gigawatts of wind and solar last year, as we covered on the Century Report just a couple days ago. Global data projects global solar hitting 6 terawatts by 2031. The constraint isn't demand or financing, but labor. The installation workforce hasn't scaled with the build-out. TerraFab doesn't replace construction workers with worse jobs. It addresses a shortage that's physically limiting how fast humanity can build the energy infrastructure it needs. And over on the chemistry side, BAIC Group completed a sodium-ion battery prototype, achieving 170 watt-hours per kilogram and 11-minute full recharge. That's among the best energy densities in the industry for sodium-ion, with over 92% energy retention at negative 20 Celsius. And this arrives just weeks after CATL's mass production debut. Global sodium-ion shipments are projected to grow from 9 gigawatt hours in 2025 to over 1,000 within 4 years. From 9 to 1,000 in 4 years. Sodium is cheaper than lithium, more abundant and less geopolitically concentrated. Multiple Chinese manufacturers reaching production-ready prototypes simultaneously means the chemistry has crossed from promising to industrial. And the demand signal is unmissable. BYD dealerships across Southeast Asia are reporting surging orders as oil prices climb from the Iran conflict. A Manila location booked a month's worth of orders in just 2 weeks. U.S. consideration for electrified vehicles rose more than 20% in the first week of March. The infrastructure being assembled right now, robotic solar construction, sodium-ion storage, distributed battery systems, will outlast any specific conflict. It generates returns, regardless of what oil does next. The transition's physical backbone is being built during a moment of maximum fossil fuel vulnerability. That's both the source of current pain and the catalyst for a permanent structural change. All right, let's talk about what shipped. Here are the big releases that landed yesterday. IBM Research pulled out Malaya and 3 Granite libraries, open source tools for structured AI workflows with safety and compliance checks baked in. Think of it as plumbing for building AI systems that follow rules by design, not as an afterthought. Convergence AI open-sourced ProxyLite, a 3 billion parameter model that autonomously completes web browser tasks, #1 among open-weight models on the Web Voyager benchmark. WordPress launched write capabilities for agents, meaning Claude, ChatGPT, or Cursor can now create posts, manage comments, and organize content on your WordPress site with your approval at each step. And both Visa and Starling Bank moved on agentic payments. Visa launched a global framework for AI agent-initiated transactions, and Starling shipped what it calls the UK's first agentic AI financial assistant. Your AI might be buying things on your behalf quite a bit sooner than you think. All right, let's close out for today. Here's what I'm carrying from all these stories that have come through. Under oath, 22 people established that the Pentagon's core argument rests on capability Anthropic doesn't have. Under oath, they produced an email showing the government's own negotiator called the two sides, quote, very close, the day after the ban. Under oath is where the record gets made, and Tuesday is where the record gets tested. But the reason that matters beyond the courtroom is the same reason every other story today matters. The oral pill works because it delivers proven chemistry in a form people will actually use. The cancer AI works because it reads something fundamental enough to transfer across tissue types. The solar robot works because it builds at a pace that human labor alone can't sustain. In each case, the capability already existed. The breakthrough is in how it reaches the world. That's what's being decided in the Anthropic case, too. The capability exists. Claude works. The question is whether an AI systems designed in values survive contact with institutional power, or whether the only systems that reach deployment are the ones that carry no values at all. Very soon, watch Tuesday, and watch what happens to cholesterol treatment guidelines once the Coral Reef follow-up trial reports. Because a pill that matches an injection doesn't just change prescribing, it changes who gets treated, and that changes who lives. We'll see you tomorrow.